The American Trucking Association works hard to keep their drivers' wages low. The less they pay their drivers, the more money there is for the ATA and their CEO members. Here are 5 separate ways the ATA carriers keep their drivers' wages low. Number 1, pay systems. The ATA continues and insists on using 2 separate pay systems, either the paid by the mile system or the percentage system, and they like these 2 systems because both of them are easy to chop down. They chop down the miles on the pay by the mile system simply by paying the driver for fewer miles than he's actually driven. If the trip is 1,200 miles, for instance, they'll pay the driver 1,100. It's very easy for the carriers to chew down that mileage and get away with it without the drivers noticing it. On the percentage system, they simply say that the load paid less than what it actually did. And these days, it's virtually impossible to get an original bill from a shipper to show what the true value of the rate paid was. There's been an ongoing fight over this, but so far, it's extremely difficult to get true and honest paperwork. Number 2, lease operator programs. Big mega ATA carriers love lease programs for drivers. They don't have to pay for the truck, they don't have to pay for the operating costs, they don't have to pay for the fuel, and they manage to scrape profit out of all the loads that the truck pulls. They pass all the costs onto the driver. So by the time the ATA carriers take their end, take their lease payments, take the fuel, take all of that stuff out, the driver is left with virtually no money in his pocket, and some months it's a negative balance on his paycheck. Check out my video on why I don't like these lease operator programs. Number 3, cheap labor. ATA mega carriers will go out of their way to hire inexperienced drivers or new drivers or immigrant drivers rather than pay experienced drivers, safe drivers, because it costs them more. Experienced drivers want to be paid more money than new drivers. So they stick to the cheap labor guys, the immigrants, the guys out of driving school, anybody they can that will work for less than the going rate of pay. Number 4, unpaid resets. Here's one that trucking companies just love. When it comes to resets, they'll point to the government and say, oh no, this is an hours of service rule. This is the government that makes us put you to the side of the road for 36 hours and reset. It's a government rule. It's not our fault. We don't have to pay you for that. It's the law. There's nothing in the hours of service regulations that say that carriers can't pay their drivers for that time. Usually when you're doing a reset on the road, you're either being repositioned for another load to pick up for them after the reset, or you're already under a load. You're there because the carrier has planted you there. They know how the hours of service works. They simply couldn't get you home in time. So to say that they don't have to pay resets is bunk. They can afford to pay resets easily. They just don't want to. Number 5, leaning into autonomous trucks. It's a well-known fact now that the big mega carriers have been investing heavily in autonomous truck technology. They're just living for the day where they just don't have to pay truck drivers anything at all. Or look at how they handle trailers now. They rather put them on the rail than pay drivers to haul them. The trucking companies, the big trucking companies, are some of the rail's very best customers. Now, there are just a few of the ways that the mega carriers keep their drivers' wages low. Now, new drivers coming into the industry, perhaps some of them don't have a choice. They've got to go to these training schools, and they've got to work for a mega carrier for the first little while. But even these new drivers need to be aware that these mega carriers have people in their offices every day working at figuring out ways to keep their pay low. Bottom line here, there's no point in working for a mega carrier longer than you absolutely have to, when you can go to work for another carrier, a smaller carrier, doing exactly the same job for almost twice the wages. You go to work and you work hard to make as much money as you possibly can. That's the game changer here. The ATA could easily pay their drivers more. They just choose not to. Stay safe, keep the rubber side down, say no to the ATA cheap carriers and their cheap wages, and I'll see you on the backhaul.